we're Cancer Trials and Tribulations, and so we'll just give a quick run through of what our game is. I'm Rose. I'm the designer on this project. I'm a cognitive brain science and music double major at Tufts.
My name is Tamsin. I'm one of the programmers on this project. I go to Lewis and Clark College, where I am a psychology major and computer science minor.
I'm Colin. I'm the other programmer. I'm a computer science and cybersecurity student at the University of Mary Washington.
My name is Forbes Painter, and yes, my last name is actually my job description. I am from the University of Utah, and my major is in video game design.
Hi, I'm Christian Faelschle. I'm the project manager. I went to California State University in Sacramento. I'm a geography major with an emphasis in GIS and a computer information systems minor.
Our client for this project is Rebecca Driscoll from Cancer Help Desk, which is a nonprofit organization that hopes to improve cancer outcomes by addressing one of the major issues right now with that a lot of cancer patients face is just a lack of available information about what options are available, and they address this through advising and providing more information to patients about things like biomarker testing, which allows for more targeted treatment options, as well as clinical trials and the process of getting second opinions, and overall just helps demystify the cancer treatment process.
So for this game, we decided to go with more of a narrative or storytelling style game, where you follow a character who is recently diagnosed with, in this case, lung cancer, and you can follow them through and see the kinds of anxieties or struggles that a person who was recently diagnosed could have to grapple with.
Okay. So the goals of this game were to educate people about cancer, to encourage second opinions, and also to spread awareness of biomarker tumor testing, and also to encourage looking into clinical trials. And the reason why this is necessary is because 50% of second opinions lead to changes in diagnosis, treatment, or prognosis. Also, 62% of people who do not receive tumor testing, which may limit personalized options. And less than 5% of people with cancer participate in a clinical trial, unfortunately.
The game engine that we use to create our game is the Unreal editor for Fortnite, which allows us to create games that can be played through the Fortnite application on various devices, including Nintendo Switches and computers. Some of the good things about this engine were that it had built-in functions and models, so it reduced the need for us to write as much written verse code because of the built-in conversation and inventory functions. There were also assets such as walls, floors, and hospital beds that it already existed, so our artists didn't have to create quite as many. There were also some limitations with this engine, such as the inability to create custom items. Originally, we were hoping to have the player have a cell phone that they use to call their insurance company, but since we couldn't create custom items, we ended up having to use a payphone. There were also some counterintuitive axes and implementations. In some places, the order of the axes was XYZ, as you might expect, but in others it was XZY, which caused a bit of confusion before we figured that out. Some of the implementations were also just a little bit roundabout, such as in order to interact with the anxiety model, we ended up making it a prop and then putting an invisible button inside it that you click in order to initiate conversation. related to that, the verse coding language just didn't communicate as well with the built-in Fortnite objects as we would have liked. And the built-in animator also didn't work super well with the imported models, so we had some difficulty with NPC movement.
So I'm the designer on this project. So my primary role was to create the narrative, create design documentation. When designing this narrative, I wanted to focus on telling a story that was both empathetic to the struggles of cancer diagnosis, while simultaneously balancing that with being educational about the different options that a cancer patient might have. So towards that end, I created the anxiety character who serves both as an antagonist and allows players to confront these common fears and misconceptions through a proxy and through a layer of abstraction, while simultaneously serving as a sort of a marker for the player character's growth throughout the game. I also created the dialogue trees, as you can see on that spreadsheet, which have the lines of dialogues that the NPC say, as well as branching dialogue options and triggers for where these dialogue trees would appear in game, as well as a consent form that appears at the end towards the end of the third act. So here's an example of one of these dialogue trees. You have an option between soothing and scaring the child. And here, I'm going to scare the child.
What is wrong with you? Good question. So, I'm mostly a 2D artist. So, me jumping from 2D to 3D is the equivalent of going from SNES to N64. A lot of hurdles. But I will say, Christian right here, it's actually been a bit of a help in me getting the details right. Thank you very much for that, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. So I'm going to start out with the doctor model on the very right there, as that was the most difficult for us to model. You'd think that out of all of the models in Fortnite, all the characters we have, there's not a single doctor there. That I find kind of strange, but I managed to take care of that. Took a lot of months for my first time, but as a first attempt, it's really good. I definitely say it's really good, and as a good doctor model as well. I also have concept art for the character as well. As for the anxiety model, you are all probably wondering why there's this red glowing thing following the player around. Now, we didn't want to go with the usual healthcare being the main villain sort of thing. We wanted to go with something that was more like personal and deep and more realistic per se. We created a anxiety creature that was the physical manifestation of the player's anxiety going into these trials. That it's more the anxiety that people tend to think that they might be an experiment or a guinea pig in these sorts of trials, but they're really not. People are legitimately trying to help you out in the best way they can. So smaller things that I created for our game here is the manila folder model. It was really easy. For some reason, they didn't seem to have a manila folder in the game, so we took care of that really easily. And also a best ending narration screen, as you can see on the bottom right there. I actually made myself for our game, and we made this in Procreate. Very, very good. I'll like that to you.
So because UEFN Unreal Engine for Fortnite is based on Fortnite, it can do a lot of the heavy lifting, and one of those things is the devices, which are a core part of Fortnite, which basically allows all the functionality that you can do in Fortnite. Some of those things include dialogue, interactions, inventory management, questing, NPC navigation, and all of the UI elements that you could ever want. One of these things on the right there is the conversation bank, which is basically the dialogue tree. And that's what allows us to have all the different paths for what you might want to say.
So on the far left is what it looks like to us inside of the editor. So many of these things don't appear when you're actually playing the game, such as the blue spheres, which are the interaction radius, or where the character or the player needs to be looking in order to interact with an object or NPC. The blue boxes with the chat icons are the conversation devices. They contain the conversation banks, which you saw one of on the previous slide. The quest destination markers are the arrows. They appear when they are supposed to in order to tell the player where to go or what to interact with. And the small device in the corner is a UI device, and it displays the consent form that Rose wrote at the correct time. In order to get these correct timings, the devices have triggers, which is what the other image is. So these are the triggers for the conversation the second time you call your insurance. The first one is a cinematic sequence device. It plays a fade to black while you're waiting for the agent. Conversation event 2 is the longer list. It is what happens if after the phone call you tell anxiety that you would like to participate in the trial. So it enables the next quest marker and completes the previous quest, which was to call your insurance. It also assigns the next quest and disables the phone call conversation so you cannot redo it. And then it enables the next conversation so you can move on. Conversation event 3 is what happens if you tell anxiety that you would not like to participate in the trial, and it has its own triggers that occur. Yeah, that is the consent form.
And
Pop
the
up.
manila folder that comes with it. Sorry, was that not unnecessary?
Okay, so as the project manager, I coordinate with Rebecca to set up Zoom meetings almost on a weekly basis on Tuesdays. I wrote the plan for testing the game. I tested the game and took notes on the issues or bugs by playing the game and running through it and identifying spelling errors. And I also learned Maya and helped Forbes draw objects.
Thank you very much, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So just to round out with conclusions here, we worked around a lot of Unreal for Fortnite editor software. I won't get into specific details, but we got things moving properly and it was all good. To round this out in a positive light, I just want to go over the meaning of why we made this game the way it was. We wanted to create a sort of game that basically is like an educational / reflection on like a person's personal well-being or like what others might be going through. As you might know, millions of Americans, or God forbid children, suffer from cancer a lot. And a personal story, I actually have had a couple of family members be diagnosed with cancer. My grandma, who sadly passed away, and Grandpa Phil, who actually is in remission, actually, thanks to cancer treatments that actually really helped it. And funny enough, it wasn't chemotherapy. It was actually a new treatment that came around, like this new clinical trials, just like what we're showing here right now. I don't exactly remember what kind of trial my grandpa Phil went through, but he's really standing right now, and he's great right now. So there ain't nothing that's going to knock him down, let me tell ya. But we wanted to have this as sort of like, if any of you are having like a family member that has cancer, support them every way you can. And sheesh, I don't exactly know how to round this well out, but we want to just let you know that they're not guinea pigs, they're not experiments. We're really trying to help them out, and these clinical trials are there to help them out in the best way we can in new ways. That, funny enough, I didn't know that. I thought it was just chemotherapy, but really it's much more. So, any questions? Any questions at all?
We have time for maybe one question.
Any questions? You, right there.
Could you talk a little bit about what you learned this summer with the process of doing this project?
All yours.
Yeah, so I think obviously I came into this without a super solid background in what cancer treatment looks like. So I also learned a lot during the process of researching for this, as well as just getting more experience working through the game design and development process again. And so I think it's been a really impactful summer for me.
Question right there.
What did your client think of your project?
Client?
Rebecca?
Yeah, so we've been working with Rebecca hand in hand on this project, and I think we got some really good feedback in terms of tone, right? I think that was one of the things that we really wanted to focus on, in keeping the tone lighthearted, positive, and overall just incentivizing or like motivating people to look for alternative methods of treatment and to get more information and to educate themselves on what all of their options are before committing is, I think, one of the things that we really talked about. And I think we made it to a pretty good spot where we're both really happy with our project.